Welcome to the 6 Miles to Supper podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Cox, and I've lost over 80 pounds with intermittent fasting 6 days a week, eating whatever I wanted at my meals, taking a cheat day every Sunday, and walking 6 miles a day. And I'm here to help you on your weight loss journey. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how perfectionism is the enemy of weight loss and what you can do to defeat it. The really funny thing about perfectionism is that you may not realize that you are a perfectionist, that you have these perfectionist kind of tendencies. Now, I actually kind of always considered myself a perfectionist when it came to school. I was very much a high achiever. I wanted to make 100 on every test, and I would really get bothered by any kind of, mistake or anything like that. I would get really upset with myself. And so in later life, I kind of always thought of perfectionism as something to be proud of. Like, that's what made it so that I was a good student. And then it was only really when I started to understand myself a little bit better, and around 2014, 2015, that I started to see that perfectionism was actually the enemy. Now, actually, years ago, I had heard a thing that kind of made me think, kind of made me stop and think. And the person I heard it from was the Fly Lady. If you don't know who the Fly Lady is, she's this, I don't know if she's still around, but she had this mailing list back in the days when Yahoo mailing lists were a thing. And she would help you get your house clean, basically. She would send out this daily newsletter, and it would kind of show you why your house was cluttered, and it would give you a plan on how to fix that. And one thing she said in one of her newsletters was that perfectionists often have a very messy house. And I thought, that doesn't compute, right? Like, if you are a perfectionist, then your house would always be in perfect order. But what she pointed out was actually perfectionism will many times freeze you because you have to do it perfectly. So instead of just, you've got a little bit of a mess in your living room because you don't have time to do it perfectly, because you don't have time to, get everything off the floor and then also vacuum and then do the windows and do all that stuff. You just won't do any of it, and you'll procrastinate on it. And so that kind of, it was one of those things I thought, that's interesting, but I never really applied that to my weight. I kind of just didn't think about perfectionism being a thing. But as time went on, I think it was because I was noticing my inner dialogue. I started to notice there's all this stuff going on in my head, going through my head, that really is making my perfectionism the enemy. I had heard the phrase, perfect is the enemy of good. But I like excellence. I still do. Even though I see perfectionism as the enemy, I don't think it's a bad thing to strive to be the best person you can be, do the best that you can. But what perfectionism does is this subtle kind of enemy that leads you to just not do anything on the weight loss journey. And it can manifest in several different ways. It can trip you up basically at every spot on the weight loss journey. So we're going to go through in today's episode 3 different places it's going to trip you up and how you can defeat it. So the first place that perfectionism messes you up is when you're trying to get started with weight loss. This looks like trying to find the perfect plan that will give you the perfect results in the perfect amount of time and that you can be perfect on. The thing is, we're human beings, and just looking at weight loss through this very narrow lens is going to mess you up because and I think this is where people get really messed up on the weight loss journey. They'll maybe find what they do consider to be the perfect, maybe nutritional plan. Like, this is ideally how everybody should eat, right? But they forget that they're also going to have to deal with other people in their lives. Like, you're going to have to navigate all the different social situations and the eating that comes with it and the pressure that comes from it, and not even just the pressure from other people, but your own kind of wanting to fit in with the social group and that kind of a thing. And so you have to have this holistic picture. Well, once you have that holistic picture, you quickly realize that you're not going to find that perfect plan. There is nothing out there that really satisfies every single thing. You're going to fall short in some sort of area. You're going to have to make compromises in some sort of area. There's not going to be a perfect plan. And once you finally make peace with this, that the plan will not be perfect, and that moreover, you will not be perfect. Even if you do find what you think is the perfect plan, you have to accept that you're not going to be perfect on this either. If you really accept that and understand that this is not going to be a perfect process, it's going to be messy, then it helps you to get started, because then you know there's there's no reason to wait any longer, because it's not going to be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. And so I can just start now. So in order to defeat perfectionism, when it's keeping you from getting started, what you really need to do, aside from just, accepting that you're not going to be perfect, your plan's not going to be perfect, is to ask yourself, what am I willing to do? What will I actually eat? And then how can I build my plan around that? So, okay, I like to eat bread. Okay, a low carb diet's probably not going to work for me. Maybe nutritionally, people seem to think right now that that's better. Maybe some of them do, but not all do. But maybe, one of these days we'll have some sort of answer on that. But we don't right now. We all have to work on imperfect knowledge. But moreover, more important is that it really doesn't even matter what's nutritionally optimal. It's what can I get myself to eat day in and day out? What are those rules that I can obey? And this is where your own self-knowledge will come in handy, because you'll know, okay, yeah, I can get myself to, maybe eat less of, if I let myself eat all the foods. But if I try to restrict, I'm really just not going to stick with it. And so figure that out for yourself. What can you stick with? And then do that. But remember, you're still not going to be perfect. Even if you pick an easy plan, something you can stick to, you're still not going to be perfect. And you're going to mess up, which leads us to the next place that perfectionism can rear its ugly head. And that's when you mess up. You're going to get started, you're going to, be doing the plan, and you're probably going to maybe even lose a little bit of weight, and then you're going to mess up. Or maybe you haven't even lost any weight yet, and you're going to mess up. Maybe you'll break the fast early, or maybe you'll eat just too much at the meal. You'll stop eating and realize, man, I really overdid it. Or maybe you'll just eat for the wrong reasons. You'll know, I'm just bored right now, and I'm going to have this bowl of popcorn. And this is where perfectionism can come in and mess you over yet again. And the way this looks is that once you've done that mistake, whatever it was, whatever kind of tiny mistake it was, or maybe it was a big mistake, but you just can't seem to move past it. You just spiral. You can't get back on plan. You can't start fasting again because it's I've already messed up. So what's the point? I'm not good at this. Or, there's all sorts of things that can happen with your mindset or with your inner dialogue that will just keep you beat down and not moving forward. So the way to defeat perfectionism in this instance, when you're actually, on the weight loss journey, you're trying to do things, is just to remind yourself to be humble, to remind yourself that you're human, that you're going to make mistakes, that everybody makes mistakes, that especially the people who successfully lose weight and keep it off, they're making mistakes all the time. The difference between the people who succeed and fail at weight loss is that the people who are succeeding at it, they're messing up all the time, but they just keep going and they don't give up. And they just say, okay, well, I got to learn from that. And, they continue to make mistakes. I continue to make mistakes every day. And I am well into my journey at this point. I've been in maintenance now for about 6 years. I've been practicing intermittent fasting for about 9. And I still make mistakes. I still eat too much sometimes. I still stress eat from time to time. I have times where I break the fast early unintentionally. It happens. But, when you have a moment like that, the correct response is not, see, you're not perfect at this, so you should quit. Instead, it is, hey, you messed up. Let's learn from that. What can we learn from that? And there's always a lesson. Sometimes it's oh, you need to stop being bored. You need to go get busy doing something else, or you need to stop procrastinating. You need to take action. That thing that's bugging you, you need to have that conversation. Sometimes, by the way, it's, hey, I made my plan too hard and I'm miserable, so I need to change that. I had expectations on myself that were too high and unrealistic. and I need to be a little bit more humble, and I need to lower my expectations just a little bit. I need to make it a little bit easier, something that I can stick to, something that'll give me results. And if you do that, you'll be able to get back on plan. And if you do that, every time you make a mistake, you just correct course, you learn a little something from it. Eventually, you're going to get down to your goal weight. Which brings us to the last place where perfectionism loves to attack. And that's when you're finished, or maybe when you think you're finished, because the truth is, maintenance is for the rest of your life. You're not done until you're dead. So you just have to keep going with this. You have to keep learning, keep implementing a plan, and continue to pick yourself up and not let perfectionism get in the way. And these challenges in maintenance are, I've found, a lot more subtle. It's these little habits that don't seem like they would really make a difference that really can mess you up. You can look at the scale and start to see, like, every morning it's like, oh, it's a little bit higher today, or, you're just more often seeing higher numbers. It's very subtle, and it can be really slow, and it can be hard to kind of track down what's going on. So the way it manifests in maintenance is that you will either do one of two things. One, you might just kind of start falling off plan, not really have a plan, and then pretty soon you're just doing no plan at all, because it's like, I haven't done it perfectly, so I'm just not going to do it at all. Or, maybe you start to gain a little bit and then you just regain it all. And it's that all or nothing, that perfectionist kind of mindset. And here's how to defeat it. You just need to fully own that just because you hit your goal weight, it does not mean that you are perfect. It means you're still human, is the thing. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes in maintenance. Again, maintenance is for a long, long time. It's for the rest of your life. So you're going to have a lot of opportunities to make mistakes. And the way to defeat perfectionism is to just always remember that you just need to correct course, that you're going to make mistakes. And no matter how long you're at it, there's going to be, the challenges become different. In the beginning, you get down to your goal weight and it's like, okay, now you're just new at it. It's like, well, how do I do this? And then eventually you get good at it, right? And so then what happens is you can start taking your foot off the gas a little bit too much. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I could have a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and the weight can start to come back. So you're always having to just keep in this, like, once you kind of master one thing, then another challenge comes up. And that's just the way life is. And by the way, I wrote an entire book on maintenance. It's called The Laid Back Guide to Weight Loss Maintenance, and you can get it on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. So just know that the perfectionism is always going to be a thing to battle. And the way to defeat it is just to be aware of yourself. Pay attention to what you're doing, continue to weigh, continue to have some sort of plan, even if it's very loose, and then take corrective action if you see anything is happening with your weight that you don't want to happen. Perfectionism is battled. I won't say defeated, because I have not yet defeated it, really. There are battles I have fought and battles I have defeated perfectionism in, but that larger war, I'm still fighting it. But what I have found is the way to become less and less of a perfectionist is to repeatedly fight it. Meaning, when you have that moment where you're feeling that all or nothing mindset come in, you just say, nope, I'm not giving into that. So let's say you take a bite of food, right? You're supposed to be fasting. You take one bite of food. Instead of falling off completely for that day, you stop it at one bite of food. And if you can't stop it at one bite, you do 2 bites. And if you can't stop it at 2 bites and you end up eating, the entire thing of whatever you're eating, then you just say, okay, I'm fasting starting now. And then you let that be a lesson to yourself that you were able to gain a victory over yourself in that moment. It wasn't perfect, but you did do it. And there are some other ways too to kind of cross train so that you'd end up defeating perfectionism a bit quicker. And basically that's doing tasks that cannot be done perfectly. Most things really can't be done perfectly, but there are some that are just more obviously not perfect. Like, for example, any kind of art that you do is never going to be perfect. You can't make perfect art. See, I can't even talk correctly. I can't talk perfectly. But any kind of painting you do, you can do a painting and it can be beautiful, but there's always a little bit of, improvement that you could have made. But what I've found is that by doing these things, practicing art or doing even something like picking up trash, if you go on a walk and you just start picking up trash at the side of the road or on the, next to the sidewalk, if you do that, you start to learn a lesson, which is you've made the world better. It's not perfect and the job will never be done, but it is, nice that you've done it. It's the same with weight loss. You're gonna mess up. You're not gonna do everything right. You may not eat the right foods, or maybe you eat a little bit too much sometimes. But despite all that, you can still have fantastic results, and you can feel better, and it's totally worth it. And you can have results and not be perfect. And it's actually here's the thing, a lot more fun to not be a perfectionist. You enjoy life a lot more when you're okay with, being good enough at it. I'm good enough at weight loss. I'm not perfect at it. I'm good enough now at it. That's, I think, a good thing to shoot for. I'm doing good enough. So if you find yourself battling perfectionism, just know, others of us out here have fought it on the weight loss journey, and we've been able to continue to fight it, defeat it in the smaller skirmishes, and we're still fighting that larger battle. I do feel like it's something that, once you've started to defeat it, it's easier to recognize in other areas of your life. And, victory in one area can kind of help you in the other, which is why it's a good idea to cross train. So, try doing something creative, or learn a new skill, learn how to cook, learn how to sew, or learn how to code. There are all those things that you can learn. You'll quickly realize there are multiple perfectly fine ways to do it. And that's a good lesson, because that's just like on the weight loss journey. There are lots of really good ways to lose weight. I personally love intermittent fasting, but I know for sure that there are many good ways to lose weight and to keep it off. So I hope this episode was helpful. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Do you want to lose the weight without getting rid of the foods you love, and that you'll go back to eating again anyway? My book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, teaches you how to practice intermittent fasting so that you lose the weight sustainably and keep it off for good. You can get the audiobook read by me for free when you sign up for your 30-day trial of Audible. The link is in the show notes. And if you've gotten value from this podcast and you'd like to let other people know about it, it would be great if you could leave a review on either iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks.